And in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to maintain and repair your AccuQuilt dies. This video applies to both the Go and Studio models of the AccuQuilt fabric die cutters. So all of the tips I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate on Go dies, but they certainly apply to the Studio as well. Now the first thing that I want to talk about is just aside from using a silver Sharpie marker to mark the lines of your dies, that's what helps you get accurate cuts, or at least see where you're placing the fabric. The other thing to note is in terms of die storage, you never want to store your dies stacked on top of one another. Now the Go dies are quite a bit lighter than the Studio dies, so you could probably stack one or two of them on top of one another and not get into trouble. But over time, as you stack more and more dies on top of one another, the foam gets compressed, and then you can start impacting the blades and potentially bend the blades. So you don't want to store them in a way that's going to damage the foam or the blades. So what I like to do is I actually store them standing on end like books. And also you could put them in a bin. If you had a plastic bin, you could store them stacked on edge in this manner as well. So there's a couple of different ways to store. Now the one time that I do actually recommend stacking dies on top of one another is when you're attempting to repair a die. Now what can happen sometimes with these dies as you use them is the foam can sometimes lift away from the die board. So I have an example here on this die where the foam on one side of the blade has completely lifted from the side. This is not really a reason to send it back to the manufacturer or the place of purchase, although that is your choice. But there is a simple way that you can repair this die yourself and bring it back into good working order. And that's simply by using white Elmer's glue. All you need to do is apply the glue into the side of the foam, and you don't really need a lot of glue, just enough to kind of cover that open space, and secure it back down. Press it into place, and then what I do is, in this case, I do stack a few dies on top of it so that it holds the foam down. So I'm going to leave this to dry overnight, and by tomorrow I'll be able to use that die again and it will be good as new. Another point for die maintenance is that AccuQuilt does send you what's called a die pick, and there's a die pick that comes with the original Go and also comes with the Studio. The die pick looks to me like a dental instrument. There's a straight edge on one side and a curved piece on another that comes to a point. This pick is supposed to be used in between the die and the foam, particularly in the corners when you get fabric pieces cut, or when you're cutting and you get fabric kind of shoved into the corners. So you can use the pick to sort of work those threads out. And then another tip that will not come with your die cutter is to just use a pair of tweezers, and sometimes that can help to pick the threads out of the board. This is particularly important for maintaining consistent cuts. Your AccuQuilt dies do not need to be sharpened. They last for hundreds of cuts if you take care of them. And so what you want to do is just make sure that your blades are free of debris so that they get full coverage across. So when you're cutting things like flannel or batting or different things that might get caught in the die, you do want to make sure that you take the time to use a die pick. And the last thing that you can use also is a lint roller, which I don't have a, yes I do. Ha! I have a lint roller. So sometimes the lint roller can be handy to pick up those stray threads that get caught across the dies. So that's how you keep them nice and clean. Hopefully these maintenance tips and repair tips were helpful for you, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy quilting!